The train pulled into Rose Hill Station right on time for once. Evelyn Grace stepped off with a single suitcase and a violin case slung over her shoulder. Her long coat caught the wind, the collar brushing against her cheek. She stood still for a moment, just breathing. It had been 9 years. 9 years since she left this town behind, wide-eyed, full of fire, and in love with a boy who held her hand like he was holding his breath. Now she was back. Not because she wanted to be. Because she didn't know where else to go. The city had drained her. Tour after tour. Stage after stage. Standing ovations that never filled the space his absence once did. And lately she couldn't play without crying. Rose Hill hadn't changed much. Main Street still had the same bookstore with the bell above the door. The coffee shop still wrote messages in foam. And the library still stood like a quiet guardian of stories people had forgotten to finish. She walked past the high school. The corner where they used to wait for the bus. The park bench where he kissed her cheek the first time and blushed like it was a crime. Her heart thudded harder the closer she got to the little white house her mother still lived in. Inside, the warmth hit her instantly. Cinnamon, firewood, and the scent of someone who still believed home mattered. Her mom stood at the kitchen door, arms open, smile soft. "You're back," she said. "I'm tired," Evelyn replied. Her mother just pulled her in. "Then rest. You've earned it." Later that evening, Evelyn walked alone through the fading light. The town looked dipped in honey, golden and slow. She paused at the corner near Willow Elementary, the place where her life split in two. And then she saw him. Daniel Ruiz. He was standing at the school gates, holding a worn backpack in one hand, waving goodbye to a group of students loading into cars. His hair was a little shorter. His shoulders broader. But she'd know that profile anywhere. She froze. He turned. And time didn't slow. It cracked wide open. His eyes met hers. And everything rushed back. The letters she never mailed. The tears she cried backstage. The way he said goodbye like it broke him. He stepped forward first. "Evelyn," he said, not surprised. Not unsure. Just full of something quiet and careful. He swallowed. "Daniel." They stared. The wind picked up, carrying old feelings like fallen leaves. "I didn't know you were back," he said. "I didn't tell anyone," she replied. They stood there in that delicate space between what was and what could have been. Finally she smiled gently. "You still teach?" He nodded. "5th grade. Keeps me grounded. I thought you'd be coaching baseball somewhere. I thought you'd be in Paris." She laughed softly. "I was. But Paris gets loud. And you get quiet when you're sad," he said. That stopped her. He still remembered. She looked away. "I'm only here for a little while." He nodded again. But didn't believe it. "You look," he paused, "like someone who's tired of running." "I am." A long pause. Then, "Want to get coffee sometime?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. His yes felt dangerous. But so did walking away. "Sure," she said finally. "Sometime." That night she stood at her bedroom window looking out at the street. She hadn't told him everything. She hadn't told him about the letter she found last week in the bottom of her violin case. One he had written after she left. One she never knew existed. "I told you to go chase your dream, but I never said I stopped dreaming of you." She hadn't answered then. But maybe fate had waited anyway. The coffee shop hadn't changed. Same creaky floors. Same mismatched mugs. Same chalkboard sign by the door that read, "Some people are worth waiting for." Evelyn paused at the entrance and smiled at the coincidence. Or maybe it wasn't one. Daniel was already inside, sitting by the window, a book half open in front of him, 2 mugs steaming on the table. She hadn't seen him in over 9 years, and yet somehow he still looked like home. Not the home you grow up in, but the one you grow into, warm, steady, chosen. "Still reading Steinbeck?" she asked, sliding into the seat across from him. He looked up, a grin playing at his lips. "Some habits survive heartbreak." She lifted her mug. "Cheers to that." For a while they talked like old friends. Comfortable light. He asked about the cities she'd toured in. She asked about the kids he taught. He told her how he ran the summer reading program and coached soccer, even though he was terrible at it. And then she asked the question that changed the air between them. Why didn't you fight for me? Daniel leaned back, caught off guard but not angry. I thought letting you go was how I fought, he said. Evelyn blinked. I didn't want to be the reason you didn't become everything you dreamed of, he continued. So I stood on the platform, watched your train leave, and promised myself that if you ever came back, I'd be ready. She stared at him, emotions rising. But I waited. For a message. A call. A letter. I wrote one. Her chest tightened. I slipped it into your violin case before you left, he said. Did you ever find it? She nodded slowly. Last week. A long pause passed between them, heavy with everything they'd never said. You said you never stopped dreaming of me, she whispered. I didn't, he replied. Still haven't. Her fingers gripped the edge of her cup. It was easier to be angry at you, she admitted. To believe you let me go without a second thought. That way I didn't have to feel how much it hurt. Daniel looked down. I think about you every time it rains, he said. Because that was the day you left. Remember? She nodded. You stood in the storm. No umbrella. Just soaked. And I watched you from the platform until your train disappeared. She bit her lip, holding back the tears. Why do memories stay longer than people? Daniel smiled sadly. Because memories are what we keep when people leave. They both laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that comes when crying is too close. I should have told you this years ago, she said. He looked up. I still love you, she whispered. The words hung in the air like stars waiting to fall. Daniel leaned across the table and reached for her hand. Then stay. Her heart jumped. Don't say it unless you mean it, she said. Because if I stay, it's not just for a week. Or a season. He didn't flinch. I've waited 9 years, he said. I can wait one more day if you need it. Or 100. But if there's even the smallest part of you that wants to stay, don't leave again. Her eyes brimmed. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I, he whispered. They sat like that, fingers intertwined across the table, hearts wide open, time forgotten. Later, as they walked outside, the rain had returned. Light, gentle. He offered her his coat. She smiled. Still trying to be my hero? No, he said. Just your last chapter. That night, Evelyn stood on her childhood porch, Daniel's coat still draped over her shoulders, and looked up at the stars. She pulled the letter from her violin case again. Read it one more time. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was waiting anymore. The days that followed were soft. Evelyn found herself smiling again, at the color of the leaves, at the way the wind moved through the trees, at the sight of Daniel waiting for her outside the coffee shop like he always used to. He'd walk her home slowly, their arms brushing, hands nearly touching but never quite holding, like the universe was still asking, "Are you sure?" And she was. Mostly. One afternoon they wandered through the park near the lake, where kids kicked soccer balls and couples held hands like time couldn't touch them. The same bench still sat under the willow tree. Their bench. They sat. She turned toward him, the sunlight glinting off her lashes. There's something I haven't told you, she said softly. Daniel looked at her, steady. Okay. She took a breath. In Los Angeles during my second tour I met someone. He didn't flinch. Didn't move. He was kind. He loved music. He made me feel less alone in a city full of strangers. We were together for almost a year. Daniel nodded slowly. Did you love him? Evelyn hesitated. I tried to. But it wasn't the same. He wanted to settle. I was still chasing performances. I didn't know how to slow down. And then one day, I just didn't go home. Daniel's voice was calm. Did he hurt you? No. Not like that. But when I left, I realized something. She looked up at him, eyes full of quiet truth. I was never really his. Because I never stopped being yours. Daniel exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for years. I didn't need you to be perfect when you came back, he said. Just honest. She touched his hand. I am now. He turned his palm upward, laced his fingers with hers. I think love takes the long way sometimes, he whispered. She smiled. Yeah, but I'm tired of detours. That evening she invited him over for dinner. Her mom had left for a weekend retreat with friends, and the house felt like it had space for something new. They cooked together. Pasta with too much garlic and a bottle of wine she'd brought from Italy but never opened. When he reached over her to grab a spice jar, his hand grazed her hip. She turned. They stood there close. Too close to pretend. Daniel. He leaned in. She met him halfway. The kiss was slow, not uncertain but deep. Familiar. The kind of kiss that felt like it had waited at a locked door for years, and finally got the key. They didn't speak after that. They didn't need to. Their hands said everything. Clothes came off like confessions. Touches became answers. And as they made love, slowly, completely, Evelyn realized something terrifying and beautiful. This wasn't passion from the past. It was love reborn in the present. Afterward, they lay tangled in blankets, his arm across her waist, her head on his chest. She traced slow circles on his skin. Do you think we could have made it work back then? She whispered. He thought for a moment. No. We were too young. Too afraid of what we wanted. And now? I'm not afraid anymore, he said. She closed her eyes. Neither was she. But across town at the edge of the post office drop box, a letter sat unmailed. One she'd written before she came home. One she never sent. Addressed to Daniel Ruiz. Inside, words she hoped he'd never read again. You deserve someone who stays. I don't think I ever will. The morning after their first night together, Evelyn woke early. She stood by the window in her mother's kitchen, barefoot, Daniel's hoodie draped over her shoulders, a coffee mug warming her hands. Her heart was full, and afraid. Because everything felt real again. And real meant fragile. Daniel entered quietly, his hair messy, his smile soft. I like waking up and seeing you in my clothes, he teased. She turned. And I like the way you smell like cinnamon and books. He kissed her temple and poured himself some coffee. The room filled with warmth. 2 mugs, 2 hearts, one quiet beginning. Later that afternoon, while Evelyn napped upstairs, Daniel stopped by the local post office to pick up a package his students had mailed to him from their writing class. The postmaster, Mrs. Jennings, waved him in. Hold on a second. You had something returned to sender a while ago. Found it in the wrong bin. She handed him a slim envelope. No postage. Just his name. Daniel Ruiz. He blinked. The handwriting was unmistakable. Evelyn. He turned it over. No stamp. No postmark. But inside, the weight of a past choice. Back at home, Evelyn came downstairs barefoot, brushing hair from her eyes. She found him on the porch. Letter in hand. Face unreadable. Her breath caught. Where did you find that? Post office, he said, voice quiet. It was never sent. Evelyn stepped closer. Daniel. He held up a hand. Let me ask you something. She froze. Did you come back here because you ran out of places to go, or because you finally chose me? The air cracked with tension. I came back because I didn't know how to breathe anymore, she said. And being here with you, I remembered how. But you wrote this, he said, holding up the letter. You said you'd never stay. That I deserved better. I wrote that months ago. Before I saw your face. Before I remembered what love felt like without applause. His jaw clenched. So you didn't plan to stay. I didn't plan anything, she admitted. I was drowning, Daniel. He looked down. I waited for you, he whispered. I waited patiently, believing you'd come back because you knew where home was. Not because the rest of the world was too loud. Her eyes brimmed with tears. You think I don't know what you've carried? That you didn't deserve more than silence and maybe? I think, he said softly, that I was always willing to wait for destiny. I just needed to know I was part of yours. She stepped closer. You are. He shook his head. I believe in us, Evie. Always have. But I can't be the only one building this. She nodded slowly. Then let me start now. That evening, Evelyn sat alone at her childhood piano. The letter sat in front of her. He stared at it. Then slowly she tore it in half. Then again. then again until it was nothing but pieces. She walked to Daniel's house just after dusk. His lights were off, but she knew he was inside. She knocked. He opened the door. Said nothing. She stepped in holding a folded sheet of paper. "This isn't an apology," she said. "It's a promise." She handed it to him. He opened it. "I choose you. Not because I'm tired. Not because I'm scared. But because you are the only place I've ever felt brave." His eyes met hers. She walked to him slowly. Deliberately. And then finally he opened his arms. "I love you," she said. "I never stopped," he whispered. That night they didn't make love. They just held each other. Like people who had been apart too long. Like people who understood that love isn't just grand gestures or destiny. It's choosing. Again and again. Even when you're scared. Especially when you are. Spring arrived in Rose Hill like a quiet apology. The trees bloomed pink and white. The air smelled of new beginnings. And for the first time in years, Evelyn Grace unpacked her suitcase. Not for another city but for home. She had signed a lease on a small cottage near the school. Daniel helped her hang the curtains. She cooked him dinner twice a week. And every Sunday they took long walks through the park without needing to speak much at all. Some days felt like something brand new. Other days felt like pieces of a story they were simply continuing to write. One evening Daniel surprised her. "I want you to hear something," he said. He led her into the school auditorium. It was empty, dimly lit, quiet. She raised an eyebrow. "What are we doing here?" He pulled out a folding chair and set her violin case beside it. "You told me you hadn't played on stage in over a year," he said. "This one's just for me." Evelyn hesitated. "I'm not ready." Daniel smiled. "You don't need to be perfect. Just honest." She stared at the instrument. Her fingers hadn't touched the strings since the night she left Los Angeles. She didn't even know if her hands remembered how to move. But she opened the case. She lifted the bow, tuned the strings, closed her eyes, and played. The melody came out shaky at first, then clearer, fuller. It wasn't one of her concert pieces. It was a song she had never played on a stage before. The one she used to hum when Daniel kissed her under the rain. He sat in the first row completely still. When she finished he clapped once. Then walked on stage and kissed her. Not because she played perfectly, but because she came back. Weeks turned into months. Her mother grew healthier. Daniel's students asked if Ms. Grace was his girlfriend. They both laughed. But neither denied it. And one summer morning on their usual bench under the willow tree, Daniel pulled out a small box. "I've waited long enough," he said. Evelyn stared, heart racing. "I don't want a big ceremony. I don't need white dresses or matching toasters. I just want coffee with you every morning. And to hear you play when it rains. And to build a life that doesn't ask for more than what we are." He opened the box. A simple silver band. No diamonds. No glitter. Just real. "Yes," she whispered before he could even ask. He slipped it onto her finger. She kissed him like it was the first time. And in some ways, it was. Years later, Evelyn would tell their story to her niece, sitting on the porch with Daniel inside making tea. She'd say, "Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it leaves. Sometimes it forgets to call. Sometimes it writes letters that never get mailed. But the real kind, it waits. And when it comes back it doesn't ask why it left. It just says, 'I'm here now.'" At the very end of her life, Evelyn performed one last piece at the Rose Hill Community Theater. The same song she played for Daniel in the empty auditorium. She didn't wear a gown. She wore a sunflower print dress and no shoes. And Daniel stood backstage holding her hand before she walked out, just like he did every time. "You nervous?" he asked. "Not even a little," she smiled. Because love had already given her the standing ovation she'd waited a lifetime for.